I want to say good afternoon because the sun is shining and it's bright and beautiful outside, but it really is considered evening. So good evening and welcome to those in our audience tonight. We love to have people come to our CNI meetings and participate in our discussions. So let's begin. Mary Jo, has the meeting been posted?
Yes, it has.
Okay. Are there any citizens that want to address the board this evening? Okay, hearing none, then we'll move on. First, we'll have a motion to approve the minutes from our March 3rd meeting. Is there a motion, please?
Moved.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Second, all right. It's moved and seconded. Any discussion about the minutes, questions? Okay, all those in favor, respond by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, 5-0. We have no bright lights this evening, so we'll get right into, we have got 2 action items and 3 presentation items this evening. So let's get moving.
3 discussion, or,
Excuse me,
I mean, not that there's much
3
difference.
discussion items there is.
Oh,
Thank
okay,
you.
I'm not sure, sometimes
Thank
there
you.
isn't. Okay.
Okay, then we'll begin first with the overnight trips. Ryan, you want to take us into that, please?
Sure, we'll get started. First of all, a big thank you to those who submitted the packets and followed the process. It's a detailed process, and it ends up being a pretty thick packet. Also like to thank Mary Jo King for consolidating the work and crossing as many i's and t's as we can. Normally, we look at these in a pretty large batch early in the school year, which again, the due date is usually before November 1st for the school year. But in these cases, sometimes there's a significant cost that comes with some of these trips. We try to minimize the cost as much as possible, but for fundraising, for planning purposes and other things, some of these are coming forward here tonight. We do have some members of our audience that are available to talk specifically about their trips and are here tonight as well in case some questions or details are there. It does allow us time to fall back and make adjustments if necessary. So given that, and given that we have it, I think we'll do what we've done in the past, which is maybe go through them quickly. Obviously not page by page, but if
No,
there's big
no.
questions or other pieces like
Right,
that.
right. Well, we're talking about 4 trips, one from North High School to Spain, one from our 3 middle schools to Montreal and Quebec, Canada, one from West High School to France, and one from Butler Middle School to Bemidji, Minnesota. Okay? Anybody have any questions, comments?
I'd like to look at the first.
Okay, yes,
Question on any of them, we're gonna take.
any of them. Or, yeah, let's take them all together.
Okay, well, I was going to look at the first one, and
Okay,
obviously, she's done this and has done a wonderful job, so I have no quarrel at all with that. But as I look at the 3340, which obviously is a pretty
Yes,
pricey
very
price tag, and it's a little more limited itinerary, but, you know, obviously Barcelona's great. But I have a couple question marks I marked in here, and I think it refers to, oh yeah, I don't know, it's not page numbered, but it says fundraising. And I know it's early because this is not for quite a while, but it says 2 of the most profitable are the chocolate bars and Yankee Candle sales. And I guess I'd like to just see specifically when, if these have been used in the past, how much it benefited a student who's either able or not able to pay $3,300. I mean, it's real sketchy, that's all.
Would you like me to respond?
Yeah, sure.
You hear me? Okay. We had a student years past, and this trip I did not chaperone, who earned about $800 on the Yankee sales. And the one differential we have in high school, and I was just discussing this with my colleagues, is many of these children also choose to work in addition. So we do what we can to support them with ongoing fundraising. So that's why I mentioned that the Yankee Candles can be very profitable. However, they get consistent sales from the chocolate bar. So it's kind of like they get more immediate. And that's what I've noticed, that they have a lot of success where they're putting in not as much effort. That's why I put those 2 main fundraisers. And because one student really did, that's a lot of money. And with Yankee, you can post it online and, you know, contact family members. And also, I know this isn't on the itinerary, but I've had students as part of their graduation press, and they say, hey, Grandma, whatever, can I have $50 this year to put it toward my trip, or $100? And so they know they're actually kind of learning how to budget. And as soon as they sign up, I say, okay, well, this is your budget every month, $180 or $200 or whatever it is. This is what you need to go buy. And I address this, or I have in the last two with Donna Moran, who's done this, who I've gone with, very clearly to the parents and what it does mean.
So if they can earn up to 800, they can earn, you're saying, or the most somebody has earned, it sounds like.
On the Yankee, now he did sell chocolate bars also,
Yeah.
and that I do remember very clearly.
Then I think I would just add in the future that you be more specific here, because it just says.
Yes.
Chocolate bars and Yankee candles, and with a price tag of 3,300,
It's a lot of money, yes.
that's a lot of money.
It's a lot of money, and that's exactly when students like, oh, I want to go. I said, it's a lot of money.
Right.
And I know as a parent who sent my child to, it was a lot of money. And
And I don't think our philosophy has been, though it would be nice if we could state it, that we don't want any student not to be able to go because of money. That would be an ideal world, and I wish it existed.
I totally agree with you. And
But it
but I
doesn't.
take this from another standpoint with students in sports. I have some kids in sports, and they dole out, for club stuff. And I'm not saying this is part of the school, a couple thousand.
Sure.
And for some kids, this is their thing. And they save and they look forward to this.
Mm-hmm.
And sports may not be their thing. I know one year we had a couple drama kids, and this,
Mm-hmm.
the language was huge for them. And that's where their money goes. But you're right, it's definitely not affordable to the average person. I can't dole that out, right,
And it's
But,
something-
but if that child does commit to it, I have seen it being done.
It's something we don't know, and we can only just guess impressionistically as to students who hear this in your class and for other trips. I'm not just singling you
Totally.
out. I would love to go, but there's just no way. And
Right.
we just don't have a handle as a district on kids that we literally just price out of these opportunities.
Really, I think in high school, it's probably the most affordable. If I were to propose this in a middle school, I think it'd be really unfair. As a matter of fact, my seventh grader had this proposal to go to Spain for soccer this year. And I threw out this price tag, and I said, no way, no, we can't do this. And for him, and he's like, okay, he knew. We do show them, this is what you would need. Now, if
Yeah.
a child cannot work, you're right, it's very cost prohibitive.
Or if they have
With the
to work to
exception
get
of the
ready for
fundraising.
college.
Fundraising and, this is a little irrelevant, but a student who got accepted to go internationally to Austria. And she'll be going, starting in the summer, and she's doing a lot of different extra things on her own. She did a fundraiser for herself at a yogurt place in Waukesha, and we did like kind of a bake sale. Part of it went to her, part went to International Club. So I think another thing is kids learning how to budget their time and money. Is this really important to you? And, because overnight, nobody can write that check. I sure couldn't. And plus, they wouldn't be spending money. We all know that. So I am sensitive to that,
No,
definitely.
I know you are, and I know you've been before us in the past.
Yeah.
It's just a question that continues to, I think, haunt us.
And I think it will continue and become that much more. I have students who have saved money, and then at the last minute, like, well, I think I'm going to buy a car instead. And
Or
then
save
life's
it for
about
college.
choices, and
Yeah.
I respect that.
Yep.
Okay, I didn't mean to go on a tangent, but I'm
Yeah.
just telling you my,
Thank you, thank you.
thank you.
I think we will take it trip by trip because there may be questions from board members regarding each trip. I do have a question for you. Oh, good, On the application for overnight trips, it says purpose of trips, and there's 5 boxes. How many of those boxes did you put an X in? Did you put an X in our average composite ACT score will be 25?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, studies have shown that language studies, students that study another language have a higher ACT score. This is data that I got online. That's been well known. That's one of our kind of our mottos in the foreign language department. There is a higher ACT score among students who persevere with language,
Whether or not they go on trips.
whether or not they go on trips.
Yeah.
Yes, this just connects them more to the culture and the language use. I've seen them, I'm sorry if that wasn't a good connection for you.
Well, it wasn't for me because,
Thank you. Okay.
knowing.
That's good for me to know.
I've got, 7 kids who went through high school, 2 that are still there, and one of them got a 26, and that's she's very, very smart. 25 is not an average
Well,
ACT. You know,
I think
it's about
nowadays,
22.
it's different than when I took it too. We took it once, and
Yeah.
I'm not saying your children are old. A lot of these kids will take it 3, 4 times.
I know.
You know, it's a different game.
know.
But again, the studies have shown that they draw more, you know, they make more connections.
I understand
Yeah.
that, and I think that that's probably true, but do you actually check on these kids to make sure they have a 25?
No, I didn't mean it written the way it's being, the goal of the district, I mean, years ago was drive to 25.
Right,
So
right.
I'm
Okay.
supporting the goal of the
Okay.
district, that's one of the initiatives. I've had students who have not earned a 25
Well,
who've gone
sure.
on this trip.
Well,
And I have
sure.
one that's earned a 30 as a sophomore.
Sure.
So, but
Sure. Yeah, I would just hate
again,
to.
it's more that
Hate to see
connection.
someone not go because they didn't get a 25. 'cause that's pretty
absolutely,
high
no,
score.
that was not it's not a
Okay.
requirement at all. Oh, my goodness, it came
right.
across wrong. Okay,
Thank you.
thank you, yes.
Ms. Ranachek.
Thank you. I was just wondering why, if we're going to talk about this first page, that first box says, all students attending school district of Waukesha schools for at least 1 year will read at or above grade level by the end of 3rd grade. I just circled and wrote each grade. I think that they should read at or above the grade that they're in.
Yes,
So I don't know if this is our new application form. Can we
No,
go back to that?
this is the same form.
Okay, but you were just having everyone go to this form from now on, right? That's
Yes.
what it was. So I don't know if we need to change
That's a
that.
good question, you know.
We're talking about high schoolers, so why are we going back to 3rd grade?
well, literacy does begin then.
But it is a bizarre series of boxes.
It is, it
It's
is.
a series of, so, just trying to.
It's not your
trying to
fault.
dot my, okay.
Yeah, I think we ought to review that, Ryan,
think
and
so.
clean it up a little bit. Poor Mary Jo, all she does is field trips.
The form was supposed to be brought back to policy. I thought you guys were gonna talk about it there. I've never heard any changes coming back, so I thought that that was going to
Right.
be tied to the policy, so if we can bring that back
Okay.
again.
It was just that 2 questions came up about those boxes, so maybe we need to clean that up a little bit. Okay,
The 90% proficiency is
the 90%
odd,
proficiency, yes,
is
that's,
unless we're checking that.
yeah,
It is hard.
Is that checked? Do you check yours?
yes, she
Yes,
checked it,
mhm.
yeah.
Do.
Yes,
I wonder if everybody does.
I would say no. That's the first time that I can recall seeing all those boxes. Usually the box that is filled in is the, you know,
Yeah.
the last one,
Yeah, right.
about the activities supporting the mission. So I don't know about those other boxes. Ryan, let's refer that back to policy. I just clean it up again. Got to keep cleaning. Okay, anything else then, yes, Ms.
Just,
Ranchik?
sorry, just the last page, the overnight trip request for financial assistance. If this person, okay, so at first I was thinking that this was partially filled out by a person. You're actually just including this in there to show what it looks
oh,
like.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah, because
I was just wondering.
there very well could be a very special
Yes, it
situation.
could.
Great.
And I would like to be very sensitive. And we've had some very gifted kids in the past who really would deserve to go, and we would do what we could to do, you know, to support that.
My first glance, I was thinking that this person just partially filled it out, but
No.
this is you
It's
up
just,
there.
it's me filled out, and then I would submit that if
Great.
we come into that special circumstance.
Can I just so you're aware, when we were trying to make sure that all students had the availability to go, so that form was added to everybody, and the
right.
instructions are, the chaperone or the person proposing the trip needs to complete it.
That's
And
right.
have that available just like that, so it's not an awkward scenario. They're supposed to give it out to all families.
That's right.
At their parent meetings. It should be available with any student that picks up the packet. That's why the top of it's filled out, so that they know that it relates to that trip, and they
Right.
turn it in with the purpose of going on that trip, if that.
Thank you,
helps
Mary
clear it
Jo.
up.
That's exactly to the point, that this is part of.
It's part of the application
information
process.
Of the packet that
Right.
the parents get. Okay. Anything else on Spain? Okay, then let's go to this next one. Thank you very
Thank you.
much. Best wishes. It sounds like a wonderful trip.
Thank you. The kids have been great in the past. I've never
Yes.
been prouder of our kids. And the last 2 times I went, they were just really perfect.
Well, I went one time with South High School, and we were gone a little bit longer, but what a marvelous,
It's an,
beautiful,
it's an awesome
wonderful country.
opportunity. They
Yes.
really make some connections that they Well, you know what it is.
I
Yeah.
do.
Yes, thank you.
They
Thank
remember
you.
it the rest of their lives.
You bet they do. All right, how about
Yes,
the
for the
Montreal, Quebec, Canada? Anybody have any questions on that one? Mr. Baumgartner?
Excuse me, just looking for a little history. Have we had middle school kids going on this trip before?
We have. 2014, I took a group of 22,
Same trip?
same trip.
Okay, that's all I wanted to know.
Okay,
I have a similar
Okay.
question, which really relates to where we were before, because here it seemed to me that you just put in the financial assistance form, but there was no other way for
Well,
students.
There's a whole list of fundraisers in there as well.
Okay, I'm looking at the fundraising page. Scholarship, student travel scholarship.
Oh.
Available, okay, and so then you're talking about the hot dog broth sale and so forth.
Yeah, all of
enhancements.
those, as
Okay,
well as
yeah.
there's a, through our company, there is an application for a scholarship as well.
What company? Oh, the tour
EF
company.
Explore America,
Got it. Oh,
which
that
is part of
looks-
Smithsonian.
That looks really good. I have to tell you, though, that when I was reading this, and I know it's hard to get the X's in the box.
I know.
I was looking and it said bus, and I thought, God, that's gonna be a long ride. And then I noticed that there's an X next to the airplane. I thought,
Yes.
Whoa, is that gonna be a long?
Although I do know some people who do actually bus the whole thing. I'm not going to be one of them, but
Thank you.
okay,
I just,
all right, yes?
I just wanted to thank you for offering so many, not that Spain didn't, I was just saying, so some people are from Waukesha and they are well-connected and they know lots of people to sell things or are in a neighborhood to go door to door or whatever, but some of these, it's just, if you have time to, let's say, hang out at the Pick and Save and sell the hot dogs, you know, there's different things for different families, I guess, and so having,
absolutely.
what are there, 8 options?
Mhm.
That's-
Plus, we've actually, added a couple things, like we're going to try to do a Culver's Night as well.
yes.
So, and then also the kids can babysit and shovel walks and mow lawns and clean out the garage for the neighbor next door.
Wow,
And they can come to my house if anyone needs any of this, babies and
We'll
cats.
send them.
Yeah, we need that rent-a-kid program that
Yeah.
used to have.
Raking.
Do you, just one last question, it's not
Certainly.
entirely
certainly.
serious, but the best books I've read really about Quebec are those Louise Penny books. Do you like her?
I
You read any
don't
of
know
those?
that person. Do you guys?
She's from Quebec,
Oh,
and her books are all based in Quebec.
well, I usually visit a bookstore while we're there, so I'll have to look those up.
But she's readily available here
Oh,
online.
even better.
Louise Penny. Yeah, she's French, and it's wonderful books, just, okay.
Great suggestion. Okay. Any other questions about that trip? Guess not. Best wishes to you. Have a wonderful time.
Thanks.
And if you have any extra spaces, just let us know. All right, the next one is the West High School trip to France. Any questions on that one?
That has the family stay too, which is,
Yes.
yeah, it's neat.
I know, wasn't it?
And you are Deborah?
Yes.
Yes. Welcome.
Thank
Anyone have any questions of Debbie?
I guess I'll ask the same question. Have you conducted this trip before? I think it was
Yes,
in
we
here
did
someplace.
this,
I lost it.
yes, I know, we've met someplace before. Last year, I presented with the students, we went last Easter. And this one is a family stay as well, it's a little different from the other trips that there are. It's more of a occasion to live with a family and to practice the language. Yeah, they did a Bright Lights last
That's
summer,
right, they did, yeah.
or in spring.
Are the families reimbursed for having these students in their home, you know, the cost of food, et cetera?
No, they're not,
They're not.
no.
See, but then how does the trip end up being $3,000 with the kids staying not in hotels, but in, with families?
That's
It's
what
so
the
close.
company that I chose, that's the price, and that is pretty comparable with other family stays. They are not reimbursed because we have students that will host from that French families. We had a couple girls here a few weeks ago through the program, and the families are not reimbursed.
So what does the $3,000 cover? Obviously, it's plane, bus,
The
right?
plane, the train, Paris, all entrance into the museums or sites that we go to in Paris, and train back and forth to the city.
Okay. How far from Paris are they staying?
It will probably, we're switching cities from the last trip that we took. So we have 2 proposed cities, we just haven't, or they haven't decided which one they're gonna put us in, and it's probably about an hour and a half
So which cities are
train
they?
ride. One is called Orléans, and the other one is called Tours,
Tour.
which
okay.
is south of Paris.
Great. Ms. Ranichek,
Thank you. Off of Ms. Brezink, I was wondering if they have an itemized list that shows you where the money goes, this company.
No. There aren't, when companies propose a trip, they don't say $40 go to the bus, $100 goes to the baggage claim, $20 go, there's no pamphlet that will give you a breakdown of that. And I've we get pamphlets and have gone through CHA, EF, VIE, no company does that.
And also with, I believe it was this trip, that if our students were to host, then they get $200 off.
Off their trip.
So are those families over there that they're staying with, do those families have the students as well? Do they have someone in that grade that might come here and stay? Is that why they're hosting, or is that why they volunteered?
Not necessarily.
So they might not even have kids that are in high school that they can interact with? These are just.
No, they
houses that
would
are
more than likely have students that they can interact with, yes. But because, for example, we had like I just said, a couple students that were here a few weeks ago that spent 3 weeks. Those 2 girls, if they choose to do this trip, they can get reimbursement, but they don't get paid to have those girls stay with them.
Okay, I just thought that it was the reversal in France,
Yeah.
that's why those families are not being charged.
I did it.
Dr. Langill?
Again, the same question to you, and I only saw a scholarship form, so if I missed other things.
Yeah, you missed it.
Okay.
It's a pretty comprehensive list of, there's 2 pages of the early bird enrollment,
saw
the
that.
hosting, best letter, photo contest, scholarship, employment, if they're seeking employment, I do all I can to help serve as a reference for them, and then we have the T-shirt sales, the Marcus, the Quick Trip, the potato bar, the beignets, and there's a 3rd page as well to the professional organization that offers a scholarship as well.
Okay. Can you tell us, since you have done it before, a range of how much the students last time around earned?
The range, gosh, for as many as we do, and as many as the kids want to participate in, probably a couple $100.
Wow, that's all, huh?
Yep.
So
And again,
obviously-
I would echo what Athena had said, is that the high school kids are into their sports, into their activities. They work during the summer. We start it now so that they have all summer to work and earn it. Many of these kids are the same students that will be fundraising for every other event, and therefore are either fundraised out. Last year, our most successful one was the potato bar that we did every week. I haven't eaten a baked potato since, because we had them every week. It was a slow process, but it was one that the students took a lot of time with.
And I know I don't mean to just.
No,
pin
that's
you,
right.
But my question, I guess, on all these trips, as we look at it as a committee and as we look at it philosophically is, and again, you may or may not know the answer to this, but I think most teachers would, is what percentage, let's say, of 30 that go, the parents basically sit down and write a check? As opposed to students earning part, or, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
I think at some point, for our benefit, it would be real helpful to know
Right.
that.
Well, considering last year, I had 9 students that I went with.
Uh-huh.
Out of, 120 students that I have and, out throughout the classes. Of course, they have to have a certain level of French so that they have to be in French 3 or above
Sure.
in order to apply for this trip in particular. So that funnels through. And to be honest with you, at every parent meeting, I tell the parents, don't write the check because they don't appreciate it. It's the kids that have gone on this trip
Okay.
with the smallest amount of spending money because they've earned every penny of it, and the ones that have paid for it a lot themselves are the ones that soak up every single cent there is. And then the ones that are
That's true.
carte blanche, you can see it in their attitude because they're just looking for the next shop to buy something with instead of admiring the sites. So
You have students that pay for a significant amount.
you have a
I
lot
thought
of
you
students
said
that do
just
it, but it's
couple
really a
hundred.
family decision.
But you said just a couple hundred. You mean more than that?
From fundraising,
Yeah.
to be honest, no, I don't think that they can earn $3,000 selling candy bars,
Right.
which we can't sell
Right.
anyway because it's against the health, right? And, I mean, there's a percentage that they can earn, but
Right.
again, the high school students, they're working more to earn their money through their jobs and/or
Jobs.
the scholarships.
So really it boils down, it seems like what everybody's saying.
Right,
So students with jobs.
right.
Okay. And just lastly, maybe to Barb's question, because we've been looking at round-trip airfare in summer, and 1,400 each way is not surprising. So you really have a pretty good deal here when you think about it. Now, I know they get special deals with these companies,
Absolutely,
but that's the going rate right now, 1,300 to
is.
1,400
Right.
each way
right.
to Europe, so, yeah.
It's expensive.
Incredible.
It's not
Yeah.
for the faint at heart. It's expensive. It's a once in a lifetime thing to, well, maybe not in a lifetime, but in a high school lifetime. And it's choices, as I
Sure.
would echo from what they said.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
Anything else? All right, I noticed something, Debbie, just
Yeah,
a picky
that's all right.
item. But your request for financial assistance form is different than what the other schools have used.
it's the
Pardon me?
same information. It's the one that I made last year as,
Well, I don't think we ask in the other ones, please explain any significant differences in anticipated income as they relate to this trip.
this is all the same, basically the same paperwork as I was included in the packet that I did the last trip, and switched some of a few of the wordings because things had changed, and some of the dates.
Well, it's just the 3 comments on the back
Yeah.
are not asked on the other forms.
Right. So, so in this packet, there are 2 different financial aid request forms.
Yes, I
That's
noticed
what you're
that.
saying.
I noticed that.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm not saying that it's inappropriate to ask these questions, because I think
Right.
the more information we have, the more helpful it is, but they're not asked on the other ones. And
Right.
so I was just wondering where that
And to tell you the
form
truth,
came
I
from.
believe the last year when, I don't think the school district's financial aid form was in there last year. It wasn't, that's a new form. And I created this financial aid form upon your request last time for this trip from different sites and work with Steve Fisher. And then I believe that it was guiding this new form.
It's probably asks more, we probably get more information from your form than we do on the other forms, but yes, and the same things that are asked on the other forms are asked on yours, only there's a few additional questions.
Right.
Okay, that,
Just one
anything?
more.
Yes, Dr. Langier?
Thank you, I mean, for all of you, for doing this, because it offers our students just phenomenal opportunities, and I do think they remember the rest of their lives. So our questions are not in any way, disparaging of the opportunity. In fact, I took a group of students the year before my oldest daughter was born. We were in the Paris Metro, and across the way, going the opposite on the platform, was a group from Waukesha South with Kit Donahue. I don't know if you remember her. Yeah, she was there in Paris, and so we're all screaming and yelling and everything, and then, of course, the trains came, and we never saw them the rest of the time in Paris. But that's a phenomenal opportunity, and I want to just thank all of you for offering that to our
Right.
students.
And I
It's
know
great.
these decisions that we all make, and we do talk to each other quite a bit, it's very stressful and it's a lot of responsibility, but like you said, once you're there in the moment, it's like, yeah, this is why we do this.
Sure, sure. Thanks.
Thank you for putting together all this comprehensive.
You're welcome.
About the trip. It's really well
And
done.
thank you, Mary Jo.
Okay, and it looks like the next one is the Butler Middle School to Bemidji.
Question?
Yes,
When I think about Bemidji, I think about Swedes and Norwegians.
Right, right.
And you're going up there with a Spanish class. Can you
know.
just help me understand?
No, absolutely. No, what it is it's a language camp in which they created so that the students, they actually have, it's an immersion experience. So they take the camp and what they do is they create almost an environment where they have, it's the only, where we're going, it's only going to be Spanish spoken. They have native speakers that come in. The staff, they only speak Spanish. Any chaperone that does go, if they do not speak the language, they have an area for the staff to go during the day because they have plenty of staff to help, to guide the camp. So they do not want any communication really in English, basically. So even though the students can't speak as well Spanish at the middle school level where we're taking it, it's still the encouragement of do as best as you can to be in that environment to really, because that's really what we want. But what's really great about this camp is that they also provide opportunities for is dance, culture, music, everything within the culture, which, honestly, for middle schoolers, it's, again, for the pricing and everything else, it leads them to, first of all, the wanting to continue in the language, and it also prepares them to maybe possibly then go on a trip later on because it's that short time, it's not as expensive, but they're getting a lot of bang for their buck in the sense of it's about immersion, it's about experience, about the whole culture. And what was really cool, I'm very excited, is that as something as simple as purchases, they don't want the kids bringing food. So it's kind of like, we don't want you to bring any of your chips, we will have we will have things, they provide all the meals. They have accommodations for the different types of anything like that, but they don't provide if you just don't like something. So it's really kind of encouraging them, you have to try it, but we will accommodate anything as far as, your allergies, anything like that. But they have a store where the students will turn in money, and they receive pesos back. So when the students want to buy something, they start learning currency. There's just a lot. Everything is really embedded. I have not personally been there, but I've talked to a couple of people that have gone there, and they have.
That was my other question. Has Waukesha used this?
We have not.
We have
No.
not.
You have gone.
yes, we have.
Oh,
I take that back.
Yes, we have.
We've taken several trips when we used to have German, the German and the French
Yes,
from
we
Warren
have.
Middle
Okay.
School,
To the Concordia.
Concordia.
Okay.
Yeah,
Sorry.
yeah.
When you said the other one. Okay.
And it's
So,
a
yes.
world-famous program.
Yes, it
It's
is.
just-
Yes.
You can't do any better.
And they are
than
expanding.
those language camps at Concordia. They're
glad they
incredible.
found something to do in Bemidji. That's-
There you go. They
So,
have,
yeah.
what, 12 or 15 different languages?
They have a variety of different languages, right?
They're
so,
phenomenal.
And like I said, it's a small thing, and if it's one of those things, they have a summer program, but it's so much more costly. So doing it during the school year, if you notice by the dates, and unfortunately, as you notice, my kind of preceding that, the information, I can't designate a date as of right now because they have to be done at a certain time. And so I'm just going to be one of those people that on the computer at 8 o'clock, there's my numbers. So in doing it ahead of time, I want to put the information out, get my information of how many students are really interested, start the process of doing fundraisers, as soon as we know if we can start doing little things, if we can, and then really kind of know ahead of time so that we can, because the process does go a little quickly of knowing your numbers. So,
It's my understanding that this village is made up of smaller villages
Yeah.
devoted to certain languages.
Yes.
And what are they? They're French and Spanish?
yes, they're not
German.
all going on at the same time, but yes, they have various villages like French, Spanish. I want to say during some of the dates, they do have a French one, I believe. It just turned out, and I think maybe a German one as well.
I think
But
so.
I know for sure there was a French one going on, but they are separate, but
Separate,
yet.
yes.
So they. So it's really, again, they immerse you.
I think so.
Oh, yeah.
So they do stay in a cabin, so it's not like your luxurious hotel or anything like that.
Right.
But
Right.
there is a chaperone that will be with them at, at all times.
And
And
speaking of luxury, you are taking a bus to Bemidji.
yeah, so, and it's most cost, I mean, the buses, they've gone up in price, it sounds like, from the last time I'm trying to find something, so I'm hoping maybe even between now and then that something else will maybe come up. But they now are accommodating the bus drivers, and that's what skyrocketed the price by like quite a bit, like $900 more for a bus, because the bus drivers no longer like the accommodations because they don't have TV and cable and this and that. So the bus company said that we need to provide, they're now doing that, because I've spoken now to school district, Kettle Moraine. So that's kind of where I kind of got this started, and so that's who I was possibly, if we had low numbers, maybe combining and kind of working things out to make it more cost effective. So that's where I kind of worked with that, since they have gone there every year.
How many students do you anticipate?
Well, I'm going to open up, I'm kind of looking, depending on the numbers, at one time at the camp, from my understanding, they accommodate up to 110. So my focus would probably be allowing first dibs to be my Spanish 1 students, the 8th graders, because they're the ones that are going to continue right away. But it would be something that, if the numbers, I would have a certain time period possibly of saying, okay, well, now it's going to be opened up to the younger, because it's okay, in my opinion, for them to do it. So that way, possibly, my goal is possibly to get a busload. So ideally, probably around that 40 students. So that way we can really have a good size for a bus. But again, that's why I put that, if you looked at the pricing, I had accommodated, if we had a second bus, that I need to make sure that based on a bus, that it's a 20 student, so they understand the price limits of what we would need to do.
And what's the cost of the trip?
The cost,
Like
sorry, you
400
probably have a ton of stuff. I'm so sorry.
480.
I can't find it.
Yeah, it's way toward the back, but
Toward the back.
there's
Okay.
a scale that, yeah.
Yeah,
I see it. I got
yeah,
it.
you see it?
I got
Okay.
it. Mhm.
Yeah.
Got it. All right.
So again, it could go down just because if I can find another company of a bus, but again, I'm going with someone that has been reliable. They have gone there, they know the routine, and this is based on schools that are close by. So I'm just looking at other options, but again, I want to make sure that it's something that's.
How long does it take to get there from Waukesha?
When I looked on,
About?
I'll be honest, GPS, it was probably about 8 to 9 hours, something.
Okay,
And, but I figure stopping, I'm looking at stopping for lunch. So I'm kind of planning between the 9, 10 hours, because we can check in no earlier than 5. So I figured the students, if anything, we could leave around 7, something like that, have them have breakfast beforehand, stop for lunch, and then make the last stride. But there will be a bathroom on the bus and things like that, so that accommodation would be there, so.
So do they have a meal the first night they're there?
Yep, they would have a meal the first night, exactly.
Okay.
So on the way home, though, they would be able to have breakfast, but that's the only thing that's where I said, depending on the timing of how things work with traffic, they
Sure.
may have to provide money, because that would be the extra cost on the parents, providing lunch and dinner on the way home. But that's kind of up there, they may only need lunch, I'm sorry.
Sounds like a fabulous experience.
yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Yep, absolutely.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other questions? All right, this is an action item, so we'll need to have a motion, please. Could we have a motion?
I would move approval.
You would
Yeah,
move?
sure,
Okay,
I would.
you move to accept the overnight trip request. Okay, is there a second? Second, okay. Any further questions, discussion? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, 5-0, Mary Jo. Thank you, teachers, for putting these things together. They are wonderful opportunities and expensive, yes, but wonderful.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure.
All right, the next action item. Brian, will you take us into that? We're going to talk about Waukesha grading for learning.
Sure. This is, I know this is at least the second time this has come forward, maybe the third. I lose track. Third, okay. Jody Landish is here to answer some questions. Based off of the last time that we brought it forward as an information or discussion item, got some feedback, made some adjustments, and since that time has had a chance to, again, share it out to different audience, which has included some parent communities, some teacher communities, and some administrative teams. So bringing it back here, looking possibly for action tonight, or approve action tonight to move it forward to full board, get some action on it that night. So again, we can begin to communicate it out, because one of the big gaps facing this really is the communication of understanding this, getting it into the course syllabus for 15-16 school year, and helping to understand what this is and how it works. So really back to where we started from. Jody, if you have an intro, otherwise I think it's discussion.
I think you just gave it, but I just want to add, since I'm a frequent customer now at this table every month, it's in your board packet. You should also have just a memo, because I want to keep you updated on just what we're communicating to secondary professionals and parents as well. So Ryan gave the intro pretty clearly. I feel very confident over the past 2 months that we have vetted out this process with all the parent stakeholder groups as well as teacher groups, and so feel very confident with the scale and bringing it to you this evening, and just hopefully getting your blessing as the action item. Just to also preview then for you, we'll probably be coming back in May with a middle school scale, and then kind of working on down with the elementary continuum and updates later this spring as well. So we kind of started at the top with sort of the high stakes, and we're rolling down. So any questions you have, you've seen this numerous times. There's just a couple tweaks in the sentences, but
Right.
nothing new from what you've seen.
That's true. Mr. McCaffrey?
So we've worked out any issues with Infinite Campus?
Yeah, we continue to. I think I mentioned last month, we're pretty much meeting bi-weekly with Allie Poff, and that's going really well. She's been in contact with Infinite Campus. We're actually bringing them in 2 days in May, per my memo, to do some updates and training. So we feel good about that progress. I think it's a more proactive approach. I think just with our systems layout with technology, as you know, Pat, it was just kind of, we needed to get all systems up and running. And now it's, we're taking advantage of the fine tuning and making it work for meeting our needs.
Okay, and then the teacher leader training in Madison,
Yes,
it's gonna be one from every high school?
correct. One from every secondary site.
Every secondary.
Yeah, so the middle schools have representation
They
too
do?
on that.
Okay.
Yep,
Excellent.
yep.
And then, Achieve is sending somebody, or?
We talked about that. I think because of their platform and what they use for Blackboard at this time, we held somebody back from that training, but they'll continue to be in the loop. They have a Waukesha for Learning representative. Drawing a blank, he would smack me. Who you want to be? Rick Nettesheim, Achieve.
We would be using that same grading scale to
Okay.
post
Right, yep, that was the next
grades at the end of the semester,
Okay.
if it's adopted. The training is really for the all semester long, the
Okay.
reporting of grades all semester long, which we don't report that in
Yep.
Infinite Campus. We report that in Blackboard.
So Rick, are you using this system now?
No.
No.
Well, I mean, we use the district's current grading system to report the grade at the end of the semester.
Okay.
So if this is adopted, we would continue and
Okay.
do the same at the
Okay.
secondary level.
All right. Any other questions? Mr. Baumgart?
From my recollection, Jody, the issues we had previously were on the red part down here, right, with the incompletes, and
Yes.
is that where most of the recent changes are?
Um,
Or did I miss something?
No, I think the last month there was some conversation at the table about incomplete and does it turn into failing? And I think
Right.
you understand how that works now, right? A teacher could use their professional judgment to give a student incomplete if they're
Right.
basically incomplete in the learning
That
target.
wasn't on the previous version, right?
No.
Okay, I believe you.
No,
I don't,
I've got the other
Oh,
ones.
okay,
I went in
perfect.
my file and got the older ones. No,
Okay.
it was not on there.
so that was the update. Right, okay, good.
Dr. Langill?
Oh, thanks, and thanks, Jody, for your work on this. I hope we'll approve it. I think that obviously grading is sensitive, and we want to be aware of that. But as I looked at the scale, and we've studied it, and you've been back and forth on it, I think it's very, very clear. And so for teachers and for students and for parents, I think the clarity is here, and that's really important. I
Good.
think that it's very, very well done. I
Good.
like it.
Good.
How did you inform parents of this? or didn't, or were they not included in a discussion?
Oh, they absolutely were. I mean, between the site feedback and their different mechanisms with parent groups, we also have different groups here. We have a Waukesha for Learning parent group that Jason Smith heads
Okay.
up, and Ryan Pat. They facilitate group membership from each of the sites. Todd Superintendent's Parent Council, we've met with at least 2 times around the scale, so they also have a rep from each building, so.
Okay,
And there would be a, once approved, or whatever version's approved, the major efforts in the next 6 months, and really they're about as big a targets as we could put on this, which is the communication piece behind this,
yes,
which is,
yes.
people have been asking, her parents have been asking for it not changing each year, for consistency, for having
Yes.
trust and understanding
Yes.
this piece. Students have been asking for, what is the path? Is it different from school to school? So we have a major piece to do once
Okay.
this moves. And the biggest piece that, Jody just said the word a little bit ago, but that biggest piece continues, the goal of this is that professional judgment piece, which is, here's the guidelines, here's the framework. We want to come back to a system that isn't about these rules that we're following, that we can pass the buck around. We want to have those good conversations between student and teacher, as well as parent and teacher, what we would expect. So if anything is going to go beyond that, we would want to have a system that people feel like they can make professional judgment, they can talk about that and empower students to either take their next step in learning or really confidently answer questions, which is what I think has been really started this in the first place.
Right, right. Well, Ryan, when it's reporting time to the parents, how do the parents get the information on their students' grades? Is it mailed to them by the school? Is it online? How do parents receive information?
It's pulled off the Infinite Campus portal, which they have access to on a daily basis. So there's a formalized process of a teacher posting a final grade at the semester marks.
So it's
But,
online, but not any mail sent to the parents?
Schools have really scaled back on those mailings simply for cost effectiveness and because they have access. Obviously, if any parent does not have access, there's
Yeah.
always hard copies and we always make accommodations. But for the most part, we found that our parents are really, they are logging in and they are having access, and so that's what we want.
So tell me about those parents that don't have computers. How do they get this information? Do you know who those parents are so that you automatically mail it, or, how does that go?
Yeah, most schools have a process right at registration, which is, if you prefer things in print, there's a
Okay,
list that's
very
pretty
good.
active at every office.
Very good.
From newsletters sent home, envelopes sent home,
Very
these
good.
types of things.
Okay,
We have the ability to know who logs in.
okay.
Yep.
Well, but I'm sure there are some people out there, not the majority, of course, but there are some people that don't have access. And I just wondered, what do you do in that case? Then also, when it is report card time, does this explanation go with the grades? Because I remember the old-time report cards, that there was an explanation at the bottom of the card or the back of the card that would tell what each grade meant, whether it was satisfactory or, whatever it was, needs improvement. How can we remind them of this?
It's a good question. I know the elementary has a scale, in essence, that they post on a report card.
Very good. That's
Well,
very good.
yeah, very good for elementary. We don't have that at
Ah, I
the,
didn't
at the
think so.
secondary level, so I'm wondering as you're talking how that might look, so we're gonna have to think about that.
Well, when you post those grades, maybe this could be, in addition, could it not?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, it could be a resource, not exactly on the transcript, but certainly visible through other means and on the portal, on
Because
websites.
I can't imagine that parents are gonna have this memorized, and we have to allow for forgetting, oh, yeah, what was it last semester? And
Sure.
I think that this needs to be in front of them so that they always know what it means. Now,
Right.
are we going to send out written communication about this in school newsletters?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, some get read, I realize, and
Right.
some do not. I
Right.
remember that well, but just so that this is constantly out there,
question.
consistently, I should say, out
Right,
there,
right.
so that parents have a way of understanding, because I know they need to be reminded, not that, because it is very different than what they know as A, B, C,
Mm-hmm.
et cetera. Mr. Cohen?
Yeah, and I guess taking this from our standpoint, that this is new to everyone in
Sure
our
it is.
system, it's going to require not only that amount of communication, but Jody's gonna be tasking up a team that begins shortly, that all year has quarterly checkpoints for every school showing key indicators, and many of those things are, for example, any course syllabus created will have a clear description of how this grading scale applies to their course.
Okay.
Any, looking at assurance of parent meetings and communications. We're gonna be looking at very simplistic things to start, but eventually it'll be about, some quality checkpoints of this. It'll be even include, regular, review of teachers' course grade books to
Okay.
ensure how things are being put in.
Sure.
We need that whole quality
you
assurance
do.
piece through this to make sure that everything from the communication to the
Yep.
student things, as well as annual regular feedback.
Yep.
This process is far from over. I think we're getting it started, but it's just beginning in terms of needing to make it fit. And what we found in this process, I think Bob Anthony said it last time, is when you look district to district, you do see that no policy and no standard is more than 1 or 2 years old. Everybody's constantly either looking at it or tweaking it. So we just assume that we're gonna be back at the table collecting feedback next year in a fashion similar to how we did this year, getting in front of each building, getting a chance to hear these pieces, because Infinite Campus was new this year, and there'll be something new next year that might throw a wrench in this.
Well, I just want to make sure that our parents understand so that they, don't come with major concerns.
Absolutely.
As they have in the past.
Absolutely.
So
That's-
we need to do everything possible to make this clear and understandable.
Part of my job to make sure that happens.
Thank you, Jody. Let's write a check.
Thank you. Yeah, I just wanted to say on our old report cards for elementary, at the top, it was 4, 3, 2, 1, and it showed kind of what they meant, and it was helpful as I kind of went through, and I would see a 2 or a 1 or a 3 or a 4, and it kind of stood out to me. I could read again at the top what it
Yes.
meant, and I'm like, okay, it's not so bad. He's just starting to learn that.
Sure.
It's not that it was just, he did bad. It was just that he didn't understand it
Developing,
yet. So
sure.
to just have that, and that was something, we had gone with the 4, 3, 2, 1 for quite a few years now, so I still reflected on that.
Reference it,
So
sure.
to have this present would be great.
Good.
So thank you, that was a great idea. And I know I'm gonna embarrass you, Ryan, but I just wanted to say this. For the last, at least year, when parents came and they would say things about the grading, and they would feel like, I don't know if anyone's even hearing me, like, they would try to say the things that they were having troubles with. I would direct them to Ryan, and Ryan he told Mary Jo, and I don't know if this actually really happened, but you can let me know if it did in a second. He's like, I want to get like a binder, or I'm sure Mary Jo did some type of PowerPoint thing. But he was taking everybody's requests and praises, concerns, compliments, however he words it, but he was noting them, and if something was really wrong and it was noted by a lot of them, he would like red flag it, and some things were just kind of one here, one there, and those could be solved maybe with teachers, but if there was a definite pattern to some of those, he was keeping track of all of that, and so it wasn't when someone just said something was falling on deaf ears. He was recognizing it, he was taking notes in order to be able to do the work that he and Jody, and I'm sure countless others have been doing. So I felt confident sending them to him because I knew they were being heard and it was being recorded, so thank you. And Mary Jo, you did all that, right? Yes.
I'm glad you mentioned that, Karen, because it's very true. When things are brought to Ryan's attention, he takes it seriously, and he definitely brings it up with the other administrators, and I do believe that it's always considered in a lot of follow-up. So thank you for saying that, because it's very true, and thank you, Ryan. Good follow-up.
Just real quick on that, that's the culture we're trying to create. So for people watching home, as we're doing this, getting those local conversations, and for all of these things, we have to continue those. So I appreciate you sending them my way. And when we jokingly say, if we're getting we said this last week at a meeting, if we're getting 1,000 emails about a topic, that's a great message. So
Right.
people have to be, feel encouraged to share things, because it gives us a chance to get a perspective of what's happening.
So, thank you, Ryan. Appreciate it. And I'm sure parents will get it, understand it, but it takes a while when you do things differently. So thank you, Jody, for all of your work, and thank you, Ryan, and Bob Antheline, thank you also. Okay, this is an action item, so we need to have a motion, please. Okay, is there a second? Second, all right, it's moved and seconded that we accept the Waukesha for Learning approval of high school grading scale. All right, any further discussion, questions? Okay, all those in favor, respond by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, 5-0. Thank you very much. Thank you. Okay, next we move into discussion items. Middle school electives update. Ryan, will you take us into that?
Sure. It was about 3 months ago that Jason Sadowski and a team of a couple of other middle school principals came here as a chance just to share some of their initial thinking on the wheel and the need to unlock it. Really, nothing, because we didn't have our sights set on this year logistically with some of the things that needed to be done, our sights are still set on next year. There's a quick PowerPoint here that we'll talk about, that this is going to be a district-wide approach with Les Paul, Butler, and Horning. But the initial discussions are starting, the conversations are going to take place, and we would imagine that a year from now, we're hoping to be in a position where students have registered and enrolled for different options and different courses. At this time, though, Jason's just going to provide an update of kind of the timeline. Here's the initial thinking since we last met, just to get some initial questions. And I would imagine 3-4 months from now, we'd be back with another update if we're kind of just to keep the path kind of current is where we go.
Will the proposed electives be part of when the students do their selection, class selection for next semester?
Yeah, that's basically the timeline we're operating off
Okay.
of. So if we know that December and January, things are in print and students are already
Yes.
selecting and determining what school they're at, we're looking at getting some things pretty complete by August so that we can have discussions here September, October, and have time to
Okay.
take care of business.
So we're looking at 16, 17?
16, 17,
16,
correct.
17.
Okay, you're not looking at.
We're, and I'll go through some of that here.
Okay.
So one of the things that in the last time I came here, one of the things that I promised you is that we'd get some student data. So one of the pieces is we surveyed at each of the 3 middle schools. We didn't do STEM because they're not part of this. But we surveyed students. So as you kind of see here on the bar graphs, what you're really, just to break it down quickly, is the green and the blue areas what students agree or strongly agree. So they, in 6th grade, 6th and 7th grade, they both believe that the wheel explores areas that they wouldn't normally take. They like the offerings, so forth. But the areas that we weren't too satisfied were where they offer enough time, 6 weeks is enough time, both in 6th and 7th grade. As well as they weren't retaining that information, neither in 6th or 7th grade. And then the students also didn't feel challenged. That kind of matched the perception data that we had as teachers and leaders to say, hey, we don't think the wheel is really making the best fit for the students that we have. So when you're hitting that when you're hitting around the upper 60s range in those areas, we're missing a good group of students there. So that kind of made us go to this next push. Another question that was asked is, as we kind of move forward, kind of thinking is, would you rather do something similar to the wheel, or would you rather choose your electives? And you see the big discrepancy between 6th and 7th grade. Even 6th grade, we're in that 50 percentile, the mid-50s. I'm sorry, the upper 50s want it, the lower 50s don't want it. I'm sorry, upper 40s don't want it. So really, we're around that 50% range that either want it or don't want it. But then you see a big jump in 7th grade that want to go more towards choosing their own electives rather than making the choice for them. And then then we gave the question is, would you be wanted to be separated by ability level or same grade? And you can kind of see where the data shows there. And then this was a big one. I took that similar question and kind of twisted it around a little bit more. I made the question is, if you were put with people in different grades and this gave you more choices, would you want to go that route? And you see a big jump in the fact that students want more choices, and they'd be willing to risk not being in classes with their kids, with their peers, to be in classes they want to be
Isn't
in.
that opposite what the previous?
I purposely wrote the
that's
question differently.
You were doing a check
The same,
down.
yes. Well, I wanted to show two different things. I wanted to show, just ask the flat-out question, do you want to be with your peers or not? And that kind of showed
Yes.
some do, 50/50. Then I just now threw in a little twist to say, do you want to be with your peers at the risk of not having more options? And you can see here that they rather have more options than be with their peers. So you can see just a little twist there, and they want to have more options.
Yeah, good.
So that kind of gave us a sense, okay, we're going in the right direction. So one of the fastest, we have to move quickly, obviously, for this upcoming year. So this is kind of what we set up for this upcoming year. Sixth grade, it's going to be pretty much status quo, except for we're going to make sure the Career Connection course is taught at the sixth grade level. Part of that reason for is academic and career planning piece is going to be mandated for the, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe it's a 16-17 school year. So we're pretty much prepared for that. We want to make sure our students are prepared for that going forward. So that's just the only twist in sixth grade. Seventh grade, that the wheel classes will continue and then eighth grade again, that'll continue. There's one exception though in our programs of Quest, Flight, and Habitat in our dual language programs. Each one of our sites has a customized approach to that. So for instance, I can speak at Butler, is our seventh graders will be joining our eighth grades in elective courses. We have 2 or 3 courses that we are going to be doing a personalized learning approach just with Quest. One of them is we're looking into the Spanish is going to be looking at doing a blended version with the Quest students. Our tech ed and business are looking at different options of expanding what they currently do with those students as well. And it's kind of some pilot things that we're playing around with to see, is this going to work out on a bigger scale? So that's the step for next year. But for our next steps, we have a lot of discussion. We have a lot of pieces to discuss. So we want to make sure we solidify the purpose of their electives, and then not just plan for, okay, what are we going to do for 16, 17, but what's a plan for years to come, and create that structure. We're anticipating there's going to be some structure and some not so structured areas in this, meeting kind of both the needs of our personalized learning pieces and as well as the other pieces that we already have in place. And which would include us assess our current elective classes. Do we want to continue these, or do we want to have additional offerings and structures? One of the questions, and I didn't post this on here, was if you had the opportunity to add other courses to our list, what would they be? And it was a write-in. And so, we had a lot of students that want to take some languages, which that was by far the biggest jump, was the languages. Tech ed was another jump in different areas of tech ed. And then some other, drama was another one. Those are probably the big 3 that really jumped out at us when looking at that, amongst many other things, many other options. We had a sample size of just under 1,000 students that took this survey.
All 3 schools.
Out of 3 schools, yes.
Well, I think it's great that you solicited student feedback, because this is what it's all about, and what they have to say really matters. And so thank you for doing that. That was a very important component of the adaptations that we have going forward. Yes, Mr. McCaffrey.
FIAD is required in 8th grade, right? 'Cause I didn't
FI
see
is
it.
required in all 3 grades.
That's what
Yeah.
Okay.
Aren't middle school kids dramatic enough?
You know what, some of them have some really good talent that way, so.
Just two questions. And one is just a semantic thing, and I guess I've talked to a lot of teachers who teach middle school. They have a aversion to the use of the word passion in middle school. So they would like interests. See where it says students will be encouraged and allowed to follow their passions.
Okay.
And, I mean, I know it's an in-word, and I understand that, but I thought their point was good, too. One of them said, there's nothing but hormones flying around my room all the time. Anyway, just a thought.
Ellen, where are you?
That third page on the right-hand bullet,
Okay,
I thought that was a constructive suggestion. But, and then my other question is, I know when this came up initially, we were looking at the wheel, and I don't know how many years, but somebody does. That goes back to, I guess, Dana. But one of the things we were looking at, and I think this is germane, but it's not here, is if a student elects to take a certain, instrumental music, they couldn't take other things, or they couldn't take that. Do you understand what I'm saying?
That's incorrect.
And we're working on that now, or we've solved it, it sounds like you're saying.
I
We've
wouldn't
solved
say,
it.
that's part of this whole process. I know currently, right now, it's not that they couldn't take anything else, it just limits their choices.
Right.
One of the pieces is, at the 8th grades, their only opportunity to take options that they choose. Now, if they were to take any kind of music, whether it's band, orchestra, or choir, that's a year-long course, as well as if they take a foreign language, that's a year-long course.
Right.
That would really be the only two options they have currently. So they couldn't take another elective.
Take a language and vocal music and instrumental music.
No, they cannot.
Okay.
Now, and the hard part, in some of this, some of these structures, and that's kind of the fights that we're having with some of the teachers. Well, if we give them this, then they can't take this. The biggest thing that we're trying to do is offer as many choices as possible
I
for
know.
students. There's always going to be a conflict of, if you take this, this, and this, I'm sorry, you can't take them all. And actually, that's some, I have a parent that's like, well, they want to take this and this, why can't you schedule them at different times? Like, well, we can only offer so many opportunities, and there's so many, there's barriers that outside of just offering classes that solidify that. So we do the best we can and allow the students to have offerings. We also do stuff before and after school as well. We have a jazz, at Butler, we have a jazz that runs in the morning session.
Great.
Before school.
Great.
For students that want to take that extra music.
Mr. Baumgart?
And I don't think you should be apologizing for the number of options we have, because I think as a district for both secondary levels, we have a tremendous amount of options available for our kids, and I'm always been very proud of that.
Absolutely.
So, you're on the right track, Jason.
Mr. Baumgart, thank you for pointing that out, because, there are other secondary schools in the greater Milwaukee area that, tell you how great they are, but I've got family there, and I know that the opportunities for courses are not as available as what we offer. So thank you for saying that. I think we have a phenomenal course offerings and opportunities for students to learn. So thank you for that. Ms. Ryanchek.
I'll ask the question that I know Ellen is dying to ask. Did they, when they suggested language, did they give what languages? Like, did they say they'd like to learn Latin?
Thank you.
The biggest one was German.
Oh, okay.
Was actually the number one, and that was the number one overall out of any option. And this, again, wasn't a drop-down menu or anything. These were handwritten, or it was written in. French, for some reason, they put French in there too. And then there was a lot of different, like Mandarin was in there. We're talking a small amount, but there was a lot of different, I want to say there's probably 6 different languages in there.
Wow.
That they want. So it's a big variety of the different options that students were interested in.
Thank you, Karen. I was going to ask that.
Nice try.
But I was going to.
It's just because they don't understand how important Latin can
That's
be.
right.
That's right. You and I know that.
You know that.
But I'm sure, did you have to take
yes.
Latin? Oh, yes. In our day, if you wanted to go to college, you had to take 2 years of Latin, so.
Even if you're going in engineering.
That's right, even if you're going to be in engineering, and it's great for figuring out vocabulary.
Yep,
And
it sure
It's
is.
great. Okay, any other?
Serving at Mass.
Yeah, serving at Mass, yes.
days.
Right, that's right, and singing on the choir, and Gregorian chant and all that wonderful stuff. Okay,
Back to the board.
yeah. Thank you very much, Jason. You
Thank
got a
you.
big job
Thank
ahead of
you.
you, but it's gonna be wonderful when it's
Coming
worked out.
along.
Thank you. Okay, next we have, math review recommendation update. Do you want to take us into that, Ryan?
Yeah. When we last left this one, so this is another quick update. We were talking about bringing in some support materials and support programs to the math world. Actually, the Dreambox and the 10 Marks programs are currently a part of many schools and many classrooms in our school district right now. But we also have a situation where we have things other in addition to those two. What we found are those are sort of the two most frequently used, as well as the two most what we consider to be highest level or having the best results. So the review team is bringing these forward. Robert Antheline is here tonight to talk a little bit more detail. One of the major questions that was asked the last time we discussed this was all about access, because if these are on a device but they require web, how does that sync or not sync or link or not link when a student leaves the school or into the classroom? So there's been significant follow-up on that, just trying to cross some of the T's to ensure awareness of that, as well as how are we planning to use these, and was there a different product out there versus this? So I think Bob's going to share a little bit in terms of some of his follow-up, but pretty confident with some of the piece that we followed up on is how it could be used and to make sure there's awareness of how not to use it.
Just question timetable, since this is just a discussion item. What timetable are we looking at for the 183,000 and so forth?
Yeah, I mean, this one really doesn't have a drop dead date, so to speak, because it's not. We have other programs that can offer some of these things in place. What's nice is that it does allow, if we do it sooner, it will allow us more time to not only get the purchase and get the license, but to allow for some of the training that would go with people that haven't experienced. And there's probably about 50% of our team, I would bet almost 80% of our teachers have already used one or two of these, but it's that chance to go back and refresh through it and take a look. So it's not a huge urgency, and it's computerized, so it's not like we're waiting for a shipment or an order.
And I would just, to add to that, I'd say many of our teachers use the free versions. So one of the pieces that would be involved would be to get them to dig deeper into some of the resources that are there. So right now, we're kind of planning that we could do that in July at the July Institute or the August Institute or at the TDP series for those that get hired after those opportunities. So it's just me ignoring the phone calls of the vendors to find out exactly when. So I was trying to, one of the things I learned here was we have some opportunities. And I just want to share a really brief story. There's a book called Switch that came out. I think it was written by a couple of psychologists. And one of the, it's a number of vignettes, but one of the stories in there is, and I went back to look for the book so I could tell you the name of the company, but I can't remember. You know, it must be at home. Was they hired a new ground manager, and one of the things they purchased was white gloves for employees. Any type of white glove possible. You just had to have a white glove. And they also were at a time where there were budget cuts and pieces like that. And the new person in charge was looking and noticing that almost everybody had different pairs of white gloves on. And they looked at, because the company reimbursed them for that, they looked at that and they laid them all out, and there were literally hundreds of different types of white gloves that they were using. So they did an analysis to find out what was the best and most cost-effective white glove, and were able to save jobs and cut back on benefits. I just share that because that's kind of what we're trying to do a little bit with the math piece, is focus our efforts and not be so spread out just because we offer math that we have in the elementary and middle school, speaking of this, that we have potentially 18 different opportunities for kids. The opportunities is the good piece, but the tools, we need to have a little bit more consistency so that our students can have a cleaner focus, our teachers can have a cleaner focus, and then from at least my lens as a district, we're able to have some really good data that we can look at kids across buildings, across grade levels, and and across different environments. So that's really a big piece of this. Our opportunities with this, though, is a more supportive and responsive focus K-8. Right now, like I just mentioned, we currently use throughout our system a digital resource anywhere from, I think we have up to like 9 or 10 different resources being used in buildings. From my lens, I have very limited access to pulling data across the board, where we have full licenses in some spots for Alex or IXL or 10 Marks or Dreambox or MobiMax or LearnZilly, I can't remember all of them right now. We're able to pull data, but we're comparing different pieces. So there's no way to look at student achievement similarly. And so that's really one of the big pieces for moving towards this direction. The second one kind of ties into the story, just a consolidation of current resources with an opportunity to provide a more system-wide digital math experience for our students. There's the analogy, the tight, loose, tight. Right now, we're a little too loose with some of our resources for math. There's benefits to that, but at the same time, we're not able to have real instructional conversations across all of our boards. The third one, there is no requirement for at-home internet access to use these. When we do our planning is built into the access we have to kids during the school day. It's like a homework assignment that is on paper or in a textbook. There may be opportunities to engage kids outside, but when we talk and we do our planning here, we plan for what we can control, which is, the 7.5 hours that they are in our buildings. While it does provide opportunities for extensions, it's not a requirement to have that. It is an additional teaching tool for in the classroom. Yes, you can access it at home, so there are opportunities for students who do have that. There's also ways to print off resources if a child or parent asks, or that we, as a classroom teacher, notice that and we want them to have those, we can give them to them. But we really are trying to focus our efforts and our curriculum building into what happens during the school day. Because when students leave, we have little control over what happens when it takes place. Yes?
Bob, I really appreciate you looking at this, because as you know, that was a big
Yep.
concern. And it still is, to a certain extent.
Agreed.
Because I know you say it's within the 7.5 hours, and I understand that, but still, the truth of the matter, as far as I can tell, is that we all have some students who can access it outside of school and some who
Yep.
can't. And granted, it's a small minority, but as I was thinking about this again and reading it this afternoon, I was thinking, let's say the old days, we have a textbook.
Yep.
And certain students can take it home and certain students can't. Can you imagine the hue and cry that would have come if we did that? I just can't even imagine what people would say. And to a certain extent, it seems to me that, when I talk to our elementary teachers particularly, but not just them, with the iPads, one of the great thrills they have is that the students can work on stuff at home.
Yep.
And this is not that. So this program is limited in ways that almost all of our other programs are not. Isn't that correct?
I totally hear and understand your lens, and I
Yeah.
had a good thought and I lost it. Go ahead.
I would
Maybe I'll
say
come back.
that's probably a major challenge we're facing, not just when we're talking about Dream Box or 10 marks.
Yeah.
That's every subject, every resource, every class. There's an availability for learning to continue on the web through any course. Even our structure of using Blackboard requires being able to log on to get information. So there is a dependence on that, and it does create an unequal playing field. And
Yes, it
it's something
does.
something that has gotten better, but it's year after year, but it's definitely something that exists. So
That's
I'd hate to put it solely on these two products, because I think if we talked about a foreign language program and our science programs, but the fact of the matter is, yes, without a doubt, if a student does not have internet access, it's about as comparable as what your example, which is
Right.
when we're talking about extended learning opportunities. And I think that's the piece where, while Bob's follow-up with what does the instruction look like, is it require at-home internet? No. But if a student decides that they're going to go further and they have interest in learning more, whether it's through Dreambox or whether it's just through their own free account that they can get on many other websites, that's one of those pieces. And I think that's probably one of our challenges. I don't want to point to the tech committee team, but it's probably one of our challenges to figure out, and I know I mentioned this before, but I know districts in rural Kentucky park their buses in certain spots around the city that emit a Wi-Fi signal.
Right.
I know there's different things that districts do, because this is one of those pieces that is a challenge that, probably the next challenge, or the next figuring out, well, how do we help that out, overcome that
I'm really
hurdle.
glad to hear you say that, because I think it's a huge thing. And some things are downloadable into an iPad, so therefore the student takes the iPad home and they have access. Some things are not, and this is not. And I know, as you say, there are other things too that are not. But I certainly applaud that district in Kentucky. Wow. Great, good for them.
Ryan gave me the thought time there. So while I don't
Okay.
disagree with any of the points that you made, I think there are some benefits that outweigh that as far as what can happen in the classroom.
Okay.
And allowing teachers to have more immediate access to data to instruct, and also to allow students to be more goal-setting and make instructional choices for themselves. And I was also going to share, there was just a couple articles actually in Wisconsin, local districts smaller than ours, who have put hotspots throughout their community to allow students to have access. So I agree. There are many things in both tools that are downloadable. The piece that isn't right now, and I'm not really aware of, I'm not aware of any resource that is the responsiveness of it. Where if you have access to internet, it may adjust to where you are, where if you download a piece currently, it's more stagnant, but there is still access to be able to download a section of it and then take it home and complete something if they so do.
But if you don't have Wi-Fi at home, you know, that laptop that the kids have, or iPad, they can't use it at home, right?
Well, there are pieces they can download to the 10 Marks or to a Dreambox app.
But you can use that at home if you don't have Wi-Fi?
Yeah. Yeah, it's just not responsive. It doesn't read what you're doing, or it doesn't give you immediate feedback.
Right.
It's not, but in a sense, it's an iPad worksheet then, as opposed to something that gets you quicker feedback.
Okay.
A couple of other pieces, it really allows teachers to focus on instruction per student or students by having the students guided by both the teacher and the resource. And now, we're never talking about the tool taking away pieces, but there are things, and yes, Bill, like facts that we can really dig into that kids can work on more independently and get responses. So the teachers are then able to pull groups of students to figure out, okay, what's their next step, or what's Ryan's next step, or what's this child's next step. The technology becomes a really nice piece as we approach a more and more blended learning atmosphere, to allow teachers to really focus in on what they need to and maybe take some things off. That's a challenge we have just with instruction and learning how you take a more blended approach and going, okay, I can give up a few pieces because I'm going to get a bigger benefit by working with the kids on this. It does support teachers in their ability to accelerate and support the learner. Both resources have built-in interventions, and what we would maybe call like a tier 1 intervention, basically like that first line of support for kids. And it also flags the teacher if a child is not getting something, so they're able to come in and support it. Just like you would in a classroom where you would be grading papers or getting feedback from students, it's just another way it notifies them. It also notifies the students, hey, you're not ready to move on past this yet. You need to come back before you go to certain levels. Now, to our conversation a few minutes ago, it also does allow for students who do have access to explore beyond the regular walls.
But at least what you said tonight makes me feel somewhat better, which is if the teacher, knowing that a student may not have that Wi-Fi at home,
Yep.
can download some things that they can take home and work on, at least that helps with that bridge, you know, that I didn't know that was doable. And if we can sensitize everybody to that as a possibility, that will definitely help.
And in addition to this isn't the resource. This is a tool that's used. So in many of our middle school classrooms, they still have a textbook of some sorts. In our elementary, we use Origo stepping stones, which have handheld paper manipulatives that do go home in pieces as well there too. So this is just an additional resource. But it does allow students to explore math practices at their readiness level. And I think there's one more. It allows the system to internally gauge and monitor academic achievement results. Truth be told, right now, beyond MAPS assessment, we do not have an instructional tool that gives us data across our kids from kindergarten through 8th grade. While this is two different resources, I realize that. We're able to cluster kids K3-ish and then up, and not just look at MAPS, but also have some internal data to gauge where we're at, and then also maybe to identify a little cleaner, hey, we need to work on X and Y. We're really strong in A and B, and we should celebrate that, but here's something that we need to do. And so one of the things that we are looking to build and continue to build across all content areas are ways to internally measure our performance and not rely just on state or computerized assessments as well. So,
Thank you.
Bob, I have, yes, go ahead, Mr. Baumgartner.
Two things. Your story about the white gloves, et cetera, et cetera. When we were starting Waukesha 1 about 3 years ago, or whenever it was, one of my concerns was just what you've highlighted in here. We're going to have teachers, and I'm not scolding them, but we're gonna have teachers looking at all kinds of different apps, et cetera, and bringing them into the system. And that scared me because that begins to diminish our uniformity of results across the district, which is one of my concerns. But I was placated at the time by people telling me, well, we're gonna let them look at what's out there, and eventually we'll start narrowing it down and selecting it, which is exactly what you're presenting here, and I applaud you on that. I think we have to get to the point where we have a uniform system that we're using across the schools, and this allows for that. And at the same time, it shows that we have allowed the teachers to look out there to see what's available and come up with ideas and then narrow it down to which are the best, and I really appreciate that. The other thing, to some of your bullet points that are up there, I took an hour, because I had to miss that last meeting. I sat down with Dan and Rose and had them really walk me through what these two systems have available to them. And I was quite simply very impressed. Some of the things that they can do, the ability to monitor the student's progress, to get the feedback, the quick feedback on a student and how he's doing, things like that that are available were very impressive to me. And I understand Alan's concerns, and those are fair concerns. But given the opportunity to do this and unify what we're doing across the K-8 system, I'm in favor of it. This is a good move. So thank you and thank them.
Dr. Langell.
Oh, thank you. And to Bill's point, and I wasn't sure how much to muddy the waters, but oh dear, here I go. I think that this article, and I talked to Pat Madden about it, and so I brought it in to give to her, and maybe at some point we could copy it for all of us, and you're probably aware of it, from the New York Times. One of the things that a lot of school districts are seeing, and they tend to be initially the wealthier school districts, not surprising, I suppose, is that there are a lot of these companies that make software and have teachers try them, okay? And this is, front page article on the business of the New York Times. And what some of these companies have done is they've put in all these hidden cookies. And all of a sudden now, there's this huge danger, which is amazing article, about these companies then getting access, backdoor, of course, that's what it is, right? To a lot of information, either about the students, if they use it with their students, and that's even the scariest thing, or even about the district or about the teacher or whatever. So it's something that I think bears looking at. The New York Times tends to be right on the top of things. They're right when the problem surfaces. But if that problem's surfacing at various schools, it's something that we should look at as far as a policy here in terms of our teachers. And I agree with you. I mean, we want them to shop, we want them to look. But if, in fact, they stumble into something like this, it can have just incredible results. So I brought in the article from the New York Times because they've seen it in some schools, and it's been horrendous. So I'm going to give it to Pat Madden tomorrow night, and I just think it's something we should look at. I don't know if you've, run into that, but it's fairly recent.
I would defer to Steve Schloman on that one, because he would have a better
Okay.
understanding.
So
To
he
be
may have
honest,
seen it.
I haven't heard
All right,
of
and I'm
that.
going to give it to Pat and,
I'd love to see it too. Yeah, that's
sure, sure,
I didn't see it in the New York Times. I did.
yeah. Okay,
Okay,
scary.
Bob, in my reading this over, if I wasn't an educator, I guess I would be questioning the role of the teacher in the use of 10 marks. Because if you've got 25 students in your classroom, each student is at a different place. And differentiation is a requirement and probably the basis for all of this. And that's probably why it's so important. So you're not broken into Robins and Blue Jays and Cardinals. But how does the teacher, what is the role of the teacher?
This is, in one sense, this is a data giving tool to the teacher. It's instantaneous. And so really it allows the teacher then to work in the small groups and really focus the instruction. The kids can't master, some kids can work independently, they always
Right,
have been able to.
right.
And some kids need all the support along
Yes.
the way. And so this really doesn't change this. This gives teachers more information to make decisions about instructional practices for kids.
Okay.
It also allows and builds, I think, the independence of the learner to give them a safe spot to try things on their own gives them immediate feedback that's maybe not always public, or maybe not even to their teacher, and they can kind of internalize that. The teacher is absolutely needed. This is not, putting them on this, that would be a part of the training and the learning, is how do you teach in a blended format? So if they're in the classroom, what are they doing? What are the students doing? And then, how does a teacher take those tools and resources?
So you're saying then there's direct instruction every day, but it varies who's getting the direct instruction, and it's direct instruction as needed.
Yeah, and it could be whole group, it could be small, it could be one-on-one. I mean,
Okay.
for me, it doesn't really change what takes place currently.
Okay.
I think it gives us a more immediate resource for both the teacher and the student.
Okay. Ms. Ranachek?
I was just wondering if there's an opportunity for board members to experience what a classroom is like nowadays with the teacher using the iPads. And I know not everybody has access to being available during the day, but if some are, then they can see that it's not iPads out all day and the teacher's in the corner and she's tied up. No, I'm just kidding. It's I guess because I have an elementary child, I guess I can see more and I see how it's flowing more. And Barb, if you remember when it was this teacher in front of the class, I know,
sure.
I mean, then you're probably wondering how could this all work, but I don't know if there's an option where you could just kind of be an observer for a day and see how
Sure.
it flows.
Yes.
Be happy to put out dates or bring people around. I also know that Dan and Rose are going to put together some evening sessions for both the resources, and I believe that I'm looking at Mr. McCaffrey, because I believe they sent you a link, or did we not?
Yeah, they sent out the links to both
Okay.
Mark's
They did.
and-
But they will also have a couple dates for teachers, principals, and anybody that's interested to come in and kind of dig in and kind of get a guided tour of the tools as well. But if people would like to go out and about, we could do something together, or I know any of the buildings are always open to people visiting.
And I guess I'd just like to ask one more question or share one more comment. Last month, someone brought up the issue of the counting up strategy that's used with, in math. And I personally want to know when and how and why do we do this? Why do we teach kids a counting up strategy? I don't think that they would be using that once they get out into the real world.
I'm not sure what strategy you're talking about, I'll be honest. I don't remember.
Well, I have a copy of it here. It was handed to us at a board meeting last month. It was called the Counting Up Strategy, and there was a subtraction, and then they had to add the numbers and count it up, et cetera, to get the correct answer, and it was, different than the way we would
I'll give you an
do
answer.
it.
'Cause I brought that up too when I met with Rose and
Okay.
Dan. I can't give you the entire
Well,
philosophy
I
behind it.
can't do this.
It works. It's
I know
just-
it works.
We learned it's checking your work is what it amounts to. It's just
Mm-hmm.
a slightly different way of doing it. And I would agree with the gentleman who pointed out it's more complicated than it has to be, and it is. But it gives I think if you sit down with Rose, or I think it was Rose that covered this with me. I sat down with her and began to understand that what we're doing is giving another way for the kid
Right, I understand that.
to understand the concepts behind what they've done. Math was very easy for me, and I wouldn't bother with all that.
Me
But
either.
for some kids, in fact, one of my grandchildren, that works.
Mm-hmm.
So you might want to sit down with Rose for 10
sure,
minutes.
sure.
And to get that answer. I don't recall everything she went through with me, but that's what they're there for. They're very helpful, and I think we should, when you get a question like that or a concern, I think the best thing to do is sit down with one of our curriculum people, and they'll help.
Oh, I'm sure they will, but it's just that I guess you
No,
say
it's-
it's just another way of.
Another way, and it might be
that-
more complicated than it needs to be. Does it work? Yes.
Yeah, it does.
And I took it. My wife volunteers at one of the grade schools, and she comes home with the worksheets that the fifth graders are doing, and she says, "What are you doing?" And I have to say, sometimes I don't understand it. But when you sit down and you begin to understand, we learn a lot of stuff by rote.
Absolutely.
Plain and simple, and if we're good at rote, we were good at math.
Right.
There are a lot of kids that have to know more about what's going on underneath that rote, and I think that's what they're trying to do with these things. And I'm not real good at defending that system because it is complicated.
It is
compared to what I learned. But I also understand that there's some people that learn different ways that might help them, so.
Sure. Okay.
That was a sermon.
Well, thank you for that. I appreciate that because, you know, I can't imagine, you know, latching onto this successfully, so I guess my brain is burned. Dr. Langill?
It just is, I mean, I think it's funny, but my grandfather, who was an architect and engineer, used to tease us when we were in grade school, and we all love math in my family, but he'd say, well, did your teacher teach us today about the most important thing? And we'd say, what? And he said, it's called Planck's constant. Have you heard that? Planck's constant? Planck's constant. It's the constant number you multiply your answer by to get the correct answer. And he was taught that in math, you know, years ago. And so he asked us, did your teacher teach you about Planck's constant today? Anyway. Yeah, yeah.
You didn't get this? Okay. All right, any other questions or comments?
Thank you, Bob.
Okay. Well, Bob, you know, maybe you could let us know where we could visit or when we could visit, because I would really love to sit in a math class in elementary where kids do this count-up strategy. I'm sure they're doing it all over, but I'd like to see, you know, how this new program works, and so maybe you could let me know when and where I could visit.
Sure, and
Okay.
we could look at it
All right.
K8, because we have
Great,
spots where it's going on.
Great, thank you very much. Okay, we have one more item left, and it's the eAchieve. Brian, you want to take us into that?
Sure. It's about a year ago, maybe a little bit more at this time, that we went on a journey to pilot what would it look like if eAchieve, was there a market for students in elementary? What would it look like? How could it unfold? Rick Nettesheim, who is here tonight, has got a chance to get those questions answered up close and personal, and wanted to give us an update on where that is, as well as look at moving this beyond a pilot model and sharing some numbers and details tonight as what the proposal might be to extend this to a longer-term option. So it is a discussion item tonight, so we wouldn't see that we need to take any action, but the goal would be to get some information going, and then if we were to be back next month or the month after with, probably be looking for contract approval, that would be the direction we go, or program adjustment. So Rick?
Thank you. Very glad to be here, and I'd like to introduce Janet Klein. She is
Welcome.
the parent of one of our elementary students.
Great.
And also a member of our governance board. And she's going to take just a minute or two to introduce herself and talk a little bit about her experience.
Great. Welcome.
Thank you. First, I just want to thank you for being a part of making the pilot available. At the time when we learned about it, we lived in Racine. We had open enrolled to eAchieve with our middle schooler, and had hopes that an elementary school would be possible. My daughter is in 5th grade at eAchieve Elementary, and it has been a very successful experience for her. It was something she needed. She really struggled in her classroom just with the pace or with her learning style versus other students. I think that one of the most impressive things that I see is that we have a weekly meeting with her teacher every week, not just at conference time, not just a note or an email. We sit live with him every week, and he makes a personalized assignment weekly schedule for my child every week. And I've seen so much growth in my daughter as a student, just her attitude in school in general, that we could totally shake up what she thought school was, to be something she felt successful doing, working at her level, at her pace, and she plans out her week, and she can schedule it around her different activities that she goes to, like Girl Scouts, and she's a part of Spotlight Youth Theater here in Milwaukee, and does some church activities too. So she feels, I think, just overall, that she has more balance. She's able to do some of those activities versus the previous year. She spent most evenings doing homework and crying and working through one graphic organizer after another to work through some of the chapter information. Now she's finished. She's done her work, and she's able to add in those things she was wanting to do. And I just can't thank EAchieve enough for making it be available. It's been really great for my daughter.
Thank you.
Thanks, Janet.
Great testimonial.
I included for your information a couple of other accounts from some of our other families, and each of them is highly unique. They each have their own unique story and experience. Some students struggle where they were before. Some students were looking for more challenge. But every story is completely unique, and that's, for me, that's the most fulfilling part of this is to get to know our families, get to understand why they're choosing to go a different route with their elementary children, and of course at the secondary level too. That's really what we're built on, is providing something that's different from the traditional, because there are families that need something that's different from the traditional, and we're just thrilled that we can offer that. Janet and I were talking earlier, if you do have additional questions for her, she'd be more than happy to answer those as well. So feel free to stop us at any time. I have other information that I'll just review for you. There were, when we met before, there were a number of, about a year ago, there were a number of indicators that we were going to be looking for to know if our pilot was successful. Before I get to those measures, I'll just give you an update as to where we are in terms of enrollment and attrition.
Can I was waiting for you to take a breath. Can I ask her a question? Okay. Because this came up as we talked about this, I think it was last spring or last summer. With the elementary level, the feeling I think of all of us was that the parent was going to need to be pretty front and center, pretty much involved. With your daughter, although she's older than maybe, somebody who has a second grader, can you give us an estimate of how many hours a week you're either face-to-face with her, or you're both face to her computer, in terms of your own involvement? Are you a parent, or your husband, or whatever?
Yes. She makes her weekly plan, and things like her math and her reading she can do independently, as well as her typing and her art and music. Some of the things where I need to be more hands-on are science and social studies with the projects. A lot of project-based learning based on 5th grade goals and state standards. And so I'm available during the day, depending on my work schedule. But she, it's mostly for questions, or maybe a math question, or Mom, this computer issue just didn't quite work. But I would say supervising about 4 to 5 hours in a day, and direct contact, where I'm directly helping her, is usually around hour and a half, maybe.
But that helps, because one of the things we had thought is that for the younger student, the parent presence and support was going to be crucial in some level, and it sounds like that's true.
And some of it is just the monitoring.
Yeah.
Internet connection is working correctly, or or did she use the right password? Yes. Some of those things.
Okay,
yes.
sure.
But that has worked well.
Okay, thank you.
Would it work for her if you were gone during the day? That's not to say that she does her schoolwork
Sure.
during the day. Maybe she does it in the evening.
We have a combination depending on the day and
Yes.
activities, yes. I would say there would still be things with some of the science and social studies projects where she would need my assistance just to, you know, kind of help her plan or, you know, get materials, things like that. The math and the reading she could easily do if, you know, she was at home herself, I guess, with her sister or with my husband if he wasn't familiar with that program.
So on an average, how many hours a day does she spend, and how many days a week does she spend with the Achieve?
Oh, let's see. She spends between 4 and 5 hours
Really?
in a day. She completes her work for the week. Usually, she likes to have most things done by Thursday afternoon because she has drama class at night, so that her Friday is very light, just spelling test and a little extra math.
Okay, thank you. All right, continue.
Okay. So we started the school year with 16 students, and over the course of the school year, we have added 7 more students who have applied through alternative open enrollment. And we did lose 1 student whose parents, after they were in for a little while, realized that this really wasn't working out for them. So they went back to their resident school, and then we did have 2 students from the same family where they weren't doing the work. And so we did involuntarily send them back to their resident school.
Rick, of the 20 that you ended up with, how many of those would be in one of our elementary schools if, in our footprint, as opposed to coming in from outside of the district?
I knew someone was going to ask that, and I was
Yes,
going to
that's
look
right.
it up, and I didn't. But if I were to guess, it's about 5, so maybe 25%. But I could look.
5 would have been in one of our
Right,
schools. Okay.
right.
That's
Yep.
close enough. So it's
Yep.
the majority are elsewhere.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Most of them are in the southeastern Wisconsin area.
Okay. But that gets into some of the financial discussions you get into later on.
It does.
And I just wanted to
Right.
have a framework.
That's right, right. And looking then at applications, we've already received applications from a few students that are in our other elementary schools in the district,
Right.
but an equal or even slightly greater number that are just being homeschooled right now in the district.
Okay, that's good.
And they're gonna be coming into our program, or they've applied to come into our program, and some of them have already been approved. Some of them we're still looking through the application and the paperwork to see if the placement at eAchieve is appropriate.
And that's over 5 grades, right?
K through 5.
Oh, 6 grades.
So the other update that I can provide for you, even since this was printed, is as of today, we have 57 elementary applications. The paper here says 47, which was accurate at the time, but we've just breached the halfway point. We've just breached the halfway point in open enrollment, where we expect to about double the number of applications we currently have if historical trends hold true by April 30th. That's not to say they will all come. We historically have had about a 60% conversion rate of applicants to students in seats on the 3rd Friday. But that's only been for secondary, so we'll see if that holds true for elementary as well. Any questions on enrollment? Yes.
Thanks, Rick. And I know this will be back before us perhaps a couple times, so I'm just going to ask 2 questions here. I think I'll keep it to 2. One is, as opposed to doing a 5-year, whenever this comes up for approval, would there be a disadvantage for keeping it on another 1-year pilot as we see how this evolves? First question.
Yep. The only 2 disadvantages that I can see are, one, then we need to come back every year. That's only a minor, just, more business items. that's a minor thing. The other more significant one in my mind is that legitimacy. If we're looking for, well, one more
Sure.
pilot year,
Okay.
that may raise questions in people's minds. And certainly, the nature of any pilot is you discover things along the way that you didn't anticipate
Okay.
that need fixing, and I'll talk about some of those things.
Okay.
I would be a little bit concerned that that would send concerns to other people that maybe there's problems that aren't there. Certainly, there are things to improve, but I'd be
Okay.
concerned about that.
Well, I appreciate your answer, and I think that's a good answer. And then secondly, and believe me, I know you probably don't want to dive into the weeds on this, but I have to tell you, page 3, I just spent a lot of time this afternoon looking at those numbers. I honestly cannot make heads or tails out of
The
adding,
financial
subtracting.
numbers?
Oh, yeah. I mean, because, and again, if you don't want to go into this now, I'm sure Finance Committee will ask you, and it'll be back in front of us, but, you know, I'm looking at 117,750, and then I look at all these numbers and I play with them like you did and maybe differently, and then I end up with a negative 170. I don't know. So when you come back, if you can do this in a little bit, I think, more logical way, be really helpful, because I can't make heads or tails out of these numbers. I know
Sure.
50 students, 75 students, 100, I see that. But then as I go through these numbers, I honestly can't make it work. So you don't want to do it tonight, that's fine. But I'm just saying, when you come back,
I'd be happy
have
to,
to make
I'd be
sense
happy
of
to
it.
give it a crack right now.
it's up to my fellow board members.
Good question about the numbers.
Yes,
For instance, let's do the top one. The 50 students.
Right.
is The revenue we're taking in
that's right.
minus the expenditures.
And that's all the lines below it?
111,
Yes, right. That's it.
Understand that?
Wait, what did you just say? Yeah,
This is the revenue we'll be taking in with 50 students.
the 331,000,
Yes, this would be the expenditures.
right?
the minuses, And the remaining, which would be, in my world, at work profit, not
Okay.
payroll, of course, because we're a public school, would be 111,000.
Okay,
after
yeah.
all expenditures have been paid.
So if we want to bring the 111,000 down under the 170,
Yes.
Sure.
then we're at least somewhere in the realm of, the way I usually do the numbers.
Yeah, there should have been a line under it, that,
Yeah.
two
Try
lines
this
under it.
then.
meaning-
Okay, and then that 6,000, that's a negative too. So in other words, after the 331, which we would say is income, then
Right.
if you go in a separate column to the right, you list these next 5 numbers, 6 numbers really, as expenses.
That's
As a
expensive.
ledger.
Then you would do a subtotal, and then you would subtract that from the 331, and then you'd get 111. Is
There
that
you
the
go.
way?
That's right, yeah.
Okay,
set up like
I've
a
seen
le-
it
it's not
done
set
that
up like a
way.
ledger.
I understand if that's, yeah. Okay, that
I,
helps.
I certainly can lay it out more like a ledger if that'd be.
I think that might help. I don't know if I'm the only one, but you got it.
I'm used to running spreadsheets like this, this is kind
But
of.
that does
Okay.
get to my earlier question, because if we have an in-school student in here in that 50, you're not going to get an additional $6,635 for that student.
It'll be closer to 10,000.
No, because if the kid was in one of our.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Bethesda,
I see.
you
I-
get the money if they're in yours.
You're talking about net for
Yes.
the district. Right,
a
right,
separate
right.
column.
I still like that, I still like what you're doing, so don't misunderstand,
right.
but the numbers bothered me a little bit when you have an in-district student that decides to go to EHE.
Mm-hmm,
You may not be gaining any revenue unless they're homeschooled, then you are.
Right.
And I don't know if you can break that down or not, but that's where I was concerned with the money.
Yeah, no, I know exactly what you're saying.
Yep, I understand.
Good. It's nice to be on the same page.
Yeah. Thank you, thank you.
Just trying to check.
Thank you. What's your name again?
Janet.
Janet, thank you. I don't know if you're gonna stay the whole time, so before, if you're not, I just wanted to ask you this.
No, go
Um,
right ahead. I can stay.
Okay. So I can kind of understand what the core subjects look like, but, like I was painting with a friend of mine who has a couple of kids that used to go here, but now she's homeschooling. And we were doing some painting a mural. And so she's like, oh, this is our art for the day or whatever. So what does, if eAchieve has a structured art, how does your daughter do art? Does she draw something and then show, or is it all on, is it digital art? Or like, what does the music look like? Is she playing whatever she's playing and the teacher's watching her? How does art and music work with you, Chief?
Sure. For art, that's one of my favorites or her favorites, I'm sorry. We study a different artist every month, and there is a background information, you look at different works that that artist has done, and then at the end, and then there's also usually a video that talks about their life as well, and then they make a project similar to in the style of that artist. Last month was Kandinsky, and my daughter enjoyed all the abstract art, and and then we went to go find some around. There was a painting at the library, and things like that. And she will do her art there at home, and then we snap a picture, or she makes a quick video. We upload it to Google Drive, and her teacher can see it, or she'll show him in our weekly meeting as well. Usually, that's her preferred mode because she can't wait to share it. For music, the program involves some music theory. There's a listening component, and some video as well. And talking about, recently it's been about the different instrument families. And then there's also where she submits an audio file or a video file, where the project for that one may be that she was singing along, or that she was, trying out our piano and investigating the strings of that, and she'd submit that through Google Drive.
So take a video of it and submit it.
Or a picture,
Because they're
or
not usually live, right? The teacher and the student, are they?
not during music or art, no.
Okay.
Mm-mm.
Great, thank you, that
Sure.
answers it.
Yeah.
So what grade levels do you have in elementary?
Was that a question for me? Or for-
Yes.
Oh, right now we have second, third, fourth, and fifth. We don't have any kindergartners or first graders this year.
Okay.
But we do have 8. I didn't look up the first grader number, but I did before we came. I happened to notice that we had 8 kindergartners. Well, students who will be in kindergarten next year.
Wow.
So if they all come, then 8 for sure. But we'll have to see what April 30th brings.
Well, it sounds like when Janet explained the music and the art, that it's certainly different than if you would come to a brick and mortar school for music and art. That's correct? I mean, I like what I heard. Wow, interesting. I'm not so sure that, our music in elementary school, involves that, but that's very interesting. But the other content areas like social studies, math, reading, language arts, do they pretty much follow what we're doing, or is it a different curriculum?
It's the same standards
Okay.
that we're teaching
Okay.
to. There may be different resources that are
Sure.
being used.
Sure.
I know for math, for example, we have access to many of those same tools that we talked about earlier. Our primary kind of go-to resources are Alex, Khan, and Front Row.
Con, yeah.
And Front Row was one of the ones that Bob was talking about. So similar, we have access to all of those resources if we need them. We really tailor it to what the individual student needs.
Okay. And you follow the same grading system that
Well,
we
at-
use?
At elementary, it's a proficiency-based model, so we're just
Okay.
looking at mastering the standards.
Okay. Okay.
So we're not issuing grades. I know the sample report card that I had in the packet
I saw that
shows
one.
grades, but this is just a sample. This isn't of a product that we're just now getting trained on. It's highly customizable, so we won't be using grades. We'll just be reporting levels of mastery.
Okay.
Instead of grades.
Okay. Because, I kind of like this. This gave a parent a lot of information.
It does.
Yeah.
And that's exactly why we chose that, to go with that Mastery Connect.
Okay.
We liked it particularly because it's first a standards mastery reporting system.
Okay,
And it's not a grade book at all. It's all about showing to parents and students and teachers where is each student at, both in a quick snapshot model
Okay.
and in and drilling down. The students can submit right into it. The standards are attached to it right from the get-go. And so it's all, Mastery Connect, from what we've investigated, is really going to solve the two significant issues that we keep finding in our parent satisfaction survey, are issues that we need to keep addressing.
Okay.
So we're eager to launch this. We're going through the professional development right now, as a matter of fact, and we'll be launching this for the rest of the school year, and then anticipating that we'll use it right from the get-go next year.
oh, thank you. Janet, could I just ask you a question? Has your daughter ever gone to a brick and mortar school, or she has?
Yes, she attended a Lutheran school in Racine prior to coming to EACHIEVE.
Okay, and would you say she's doing better in eAchieve than she was in the brick and mortar school?
Hands down,
No kidding. That's great.
absolutely.
So it shows that it's working for her.
It really has. She's
Okay.
not spending time comparing herself with other students.
True,
She's able to work at her own pace on things that she struggles with.
sure.
Time and time again, her classroom teacher had said things like, if Julia had another week to spend on this, she'd have it. We can do that.
Sure, you have that luxury. Okay, thank you very much. Sure. Any other questions, comments?
No, I appreciate it.
Yeah, that was
Yeah.
good, Rick. Thank you
Thank
very
you for
much. It
coming.
really gave us another look at what's going on and how successful the program has been. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you.
Thank you, Janet, for being here. We appreciate it.
Oh, you're welcome. I just want to make sure it's available for many students after mine.
Sure.
Thank you.
Okay, looks like that brings us to the end of our meeting this evening. Our next CNI meeting will be on Tuesday, May 5th. Do you believe the school year is almost over? It just started. So it'll be Tuesday, May 5th at 6 o'clock. Meeting is adjourned.